and how can, when we're thrown into this world, how can we navigate it better? How can we care for our loved ones better? And I'm really charged up that I also, one of my favorite things is having book authors. And so I am really charged up today to be spotlighting another author, Nicole Smith. She's written the book, Diagnosis Dementia, Your Guide for Eldercare Planning and Crisis Management. And so I am really excited to welcome Nicole to the stage here. Hey, Nicole. Out there in sunny Tucson, Arizona. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
well, first off, something that I didn't say to the audience, the best thing about these discussions is they're live and interactive. So if you've got a question, if you've got something that you're challenged with, and look, I mean, it can obviously be on the topic of dementia and caring for a loved one with dementia, but if there's something else, throw it out into chat. You see Christine has introduced herself, but you can also use the Q&A button. And if you'd prefer not to type in a question, you can just raise your little virtual hand and I'll open up your mic. But Nicole, most of the time when I have folks on, I say, hey, Nicole, let's get to know you a little bit better, and then we'll talk about your book. But I know that your book has a lot of your personal story in it. And so what I say is, let's just kind of jump into this dialogue because I think I'm pretty confident you're going to give us a little bit about your background when we kind of dive in a little bit deeper. But so today my first question is, what made you write a book about diagnosis called Diagnosis Dementia? Tell us that little story and how you went about it.
Sure. Well, it's great to see you, Steve. I love all of your interviews, and it's always fun to be here. I wrote the book I could not find. Basically, I turn to books when I need to learn about things, and my mother was diagnosed with dementia in August of 2021, but there were things leading up to that. But anyway, she was diagnosed, and I was searching for a resource manual, a guide, help, and there's all kinds of help out there, but it's not readily available in one kind of place. I mean, there's the 36-hour day, which is like, 4 inches thick. And I just was learning and growing and researching things along the way. And I just decided to put it into one concise manual. But also my mother's situation was so crazy. Like I just kept thinking there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And she was so defiant and in denial and crazy, and all these things happened. And so it's a combination of a memoir of what we went through and our personal story, and then also a resource manual with websites and referrals to other books and movies and different things. So it kind of goes back and forth throughout the book. And so it tells you kind of what you need to do and how to prepare, but it also shows you our story and what happened to us, and this is why this is important to do these things. So
Well,
that's the
uh,
crux.
okay, well, good. Okay, so that was a great way for me to now say, okay, tell me a little bit about your story of caring for a loved one with dementia. Do you have siblings? Was this were you caring for your mom in your home? Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that journey, and then we'll dive into the book.
Okay, sorry. Well, she was living in Los Angeles and I was living in New Jersey. And my sister lived 15 minutes from her in Los Angeles, but my sister said she was too busy to help out. I mean, she did a little bit. So she said, well, you just take care of it. And so I was flying cross country every month for 8, 9 months as things escalated and trying to help. And my aunt, my mother's sister, was in Maryland and she was flying cross country. We were tag teaming, trying to figure this out and get her to move into a memory care. Her mother had been in memory care, and so she had navigated that for her. But then when it came time for my mom to realize she needed help, she was having no part of it. They took her driver's license away. That was a huge point of contention. So my mother, it's a long story. It was a horrendous, it was event driven. So we were trying to prepare, but then there was a horrific event that happened that drove her into memory care, and then she was in memory care in Maryland for 2 years. And we just moved her in 2 weeks ago to memory care here in Tucson near me. And her stuff came on the moving van yesterday from Maryland.
Holy cow. I can't believe that. So you're basically right in the
I'm
middle.
I'm still in it. Yeah. And her
Okay.
79th birthday is Thursday.
So there might be a sequel to this book, actually.
I,
Yeah.
I've already got like so much material for
Okay.
book two. So
All
I'm
right.
still trying to get
So
book one, but
a couple of things that I want to kind of dive into about your story, and then we'll kind of talk about, the how the book is organized and this, that, and the other. But so one of the things that I hear an awful lot is sort of what you talked about. It's the dynamic, not mom, but it's the dynamics of the family in
Mhm.
terms of okay, no, you do it. You got full approval, don't bother me. And so that was even though, that loved one lived right down the street. The so any and you can glean from this from the book too, but any sort of words of wisdom to people that are faced with a family dynamic similar or even different than what you're faced with there.
Yeah, the family dynamics play a part. So we ended up hiring an elder law attorney in LA. And when I talked to him and told him our story, he said, "Oh, same play, different actors. You've
Hmm.
got one that's checked out. That was my brother. He checked out 20 years ago. One that's got their hand out. And my sister, she's just kind of a drama queen. And then one kid like doing everything. So, and that was me. So I'm also a circle leader for daughterhood.org, which is a support group, national support group for caregivers. And sometimes we'll have people on there that are only children, and they're like, well, I'm an only child and it all falls on me, and it's terrible. And I was like, well, yes and no, because yes, it all falls on you, but you don't have to deal with the family dynamics of siblings. I mean, some work it out great. And I have 5 stepsisters, and the oldest one has been especially supportive, and then the other ones are supportive, but it's a big family dynamic in our family.
Okay, so now you also brought up a profession. Well, there's two things that you brought up there when you answered that question, and I want to share this with the audience. So the first is, well, actually, the first thing that you brought up, we'll get to daughterhood in a moment. You brought up an elder law attorney. Okay, so I'm pulling up the screen, and I'll share the link for the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. We also have attorneys that are positive aging community champions that I can share as well. But tell us what were you why did you contact the elder law attorney?
Well, we had a kind of a unique situation. Fortunately, my mom had her trust and her will and her power of attorney and everything done. But then as her dementia worsened, and she had me, my sister, and my aunt, and she kept changing all of her documents depending on who was in favor at the time. So she would change and put one first and the other one and take the other one off. And then she would call her attorney, and the attorney would change everything and charge her $1,000 and then mail it. And then she would do it again like a few weeks later. So it was crazy. And so we were in California, and she had her documents done, but she was refusing to leave her house. She was absolutely refusing. And we didn't have any power to get her to leave her house because she couldn't sustain living in that house. She didn't have the funds, and she refused to believe us. So there's a power of attorney. You can have power over someone's financials, but it's a separate kind of entity to have the power over the person. So short of dragging her out of the house in a straitjacket, we had to have the elder law attorney guide us through that process, whether we go conservatorship, which is the Britney Spears thing, which is a nightmare. And we were kind of having him educate us about that process, which we did not have to do, but we came close.
Wow. Okay. So, man, this keeps on getting more interesting as you talk. But uh now, out of curiosity, was your mom always that way? Like, or was that the dementia of sort of
Well,
like I'm redoing the will and the succession
well,
bit?
yes and no. So she's always, she was an entrepreneur. She ran a couple businesses. She's always been very dynamic and energetic and forceful and demanding and manipulating. And I mean, we had a great relationship, and we do. But it got 100 times worse. I call them the mom mantras. She would sit me down for 45 minutes and tell me exactly how she perceived things and what she wanted and and it wasn't true. Like, I mean, she had her own. And then as I learned more about dementia, they're accusatory, they're paranoid, they're in denial. And so, I mean, it's really bad to say, but I'm like, right now, she's drugged and trapped in memory care, and she's so much better. And we have a great time. But and the meds, she ended up in a psych ward, and they got her meds managed, and that has been the game changer.
Okay. All right. So that some cognitive and mental health issues all wrapped up in one just gets accelerated when somebody has dementia. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick a pin in that. And now you had brought up an organization called Daughterhood, and I'll share that link with you. So now what is Daughterhood, and did you get involved with Daughterhood
Yes.
before,
Yeah. So
during, or after all this
yeah,
stuff?
during. Yeah. So I found Daughterhood. I forget how I found it. Oh, and I know. I ordered somebody's book. A woman in New Jersey wrote a book, and in that book was a bookmark with a Daughterhood quote and the Daughterhood website. And I went on it immediately. I'm getting chills now because I just was like, oh my God, this is what I need. And so Daughterhood was started by Ann Tumlinson, who owns a consulting firm in DC that's all about elder care and policy, and she's a powerhouse. And so she started Daughterhood about a dozen years ago as a side, meet Ann, yeah, as to because she in her work and everything she did, she saw a need for daughters primarily to come together, to share, to talk, to learn from one another. And at that time, it was circles around the country that were in person, but then COVID changed everything, and now they're virtual, and they're offered all kinds of all during the month. And there's two kinds. There's one that's a topic circle that's virtual that focuses on either dementia or grief or caregiving or
Yeah, so
Medicare.
this would be a topic here.
Yep,
Caregiving
yep,
101, get started.
yep.
Okay.
And then last night I was a second on a connection circle. So connection circles are just log on, cry, share, ask questions. And so the last night it was actually the circle leader from Tucson here led it, and I was just kind of her sidekick. But I do lead some circles too. It with everything with my mom has been busy this last month, so I haven't led one in a little while, but I'll be back on the docket soon. And I'm
Okay.
also part of the management team, or the kind of as a volunteer.
Yeah, and well, I'm glad that we were able to talk about this. And so this seems to be because they're online, pretty accessible and easy for any who's listening to jump on. But getting involved with that, how did that help you through your journey?
Oh, it was very helpful because I connected with these women that have all had their own stories, and it gave me kind of a positive outlet. I was working on the book, but also it gave me something. I'm kind of a volunteer obsessive kind of person, and so it just was a way to channel everything that I was doing, everything that I was learning, and also feed into what I was learning, because it's constantly learning and sharing and growing and sharing that and coming, full circle. So I'm learning more all the time, because it's, as you know, it's a giant scope of information and because I said it's like caregiving is like learning three new languages under duress with dire consequences. So you're learning medical, you're learning financial, legal, emotional. It's a lot.
And before we were talking, you have a husband and you got four kids and five. Okay, five kids. So doing all this stuff with that dynamic, it really adds up too. Okay. Martha asks, how did the circles work? So yeah, I mean, give us a little Daughterhood 101, and I feel like I've reached out to Ann Tomlinson to
Yeah.
try to get
She's
her
been
on.
busy. Yeah, she's her company is growing, but again, it's more like on the policy side, and
Yeah.
she's got a whole separate company. So Daughterhood is kind of like and it's a 501(c)(3). So and the website's new and the team is new. Like there's been a lot of kind of a
Okay.
rebranding and bolstering of daughterhood. But the concept is the same. We're here for caregivers, we're here for daughters or sons or spouses. And basically you just click on the circle you want to join, and you will get a registration link in your email, and then it's just Zoom. You just zoom right in
Okay.
and hang out.
So folks, this is almost, I mean, as easy as attending today's discussion. You just go to the Daughterhood website, take a look at what they've got on the calendar, jump in and try it out and see if it's as positive as the experience that Nicole had. So
And there's also a podcast, Daughterhood, the podcast run by Roseanne Corcoran, and there's like 50 episodes. She is amazing. She has top authors, top people in the space, consultants. So there's a podcast, there's a blog. It's amazing.
okay, cool. Yeah, no,
Sorry.
we got that there. Okay, great.
Yeah, there she is. Roseanne is amazing.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Okay. So now let's because we got to talk about the book. We've been talking for close to a half hour. So the book has a lot of different chapters, but you've organized it into three parts. Be aware, build a plan of care, and prepare. And I can't think of a better way for us to have a dialogue than to kind of dive through that. But before you answer that, let me just address Steve. Steve says, I'm currently aging solo, no family that can look after me if I get dementia. Are there things that I should look for in myself to determine if I have dementia? I have a good friend who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he is not aware of his limitations. Number one, Steve, just like Nicole shared her personal story, thank you for sharing yours. And the reason I wanted to address your question early on is that I know solo aging is one of the most concerning topics and that our audience and community is all about. And so I wanted uh, this to be on Nicole's radar, solutions for you, but also other attendees that are in this discussion. If you share a similar concern as Steve, or maybe you've discovered a solution, feel free to drop it into chat. That is definitely a real issue that a lot of people are dealing with. Anyways, so I wanted to make sure we addressed Steve there. But then let's get back to the three sections, and we might be able to weave some solutions for Steve into this too. Is be aware, build a plan of care, and prepare. So let's start with be aware. What do you mean about be aware?
Well, be aware, and this goes back to Steve's thing. So we didn't know anything about dementia. We didn't expect it. I didn't know anything about Alzheimer's. So there were, looking back in hindsight, there were things that mom had done that were a little wonky. And we just said, oh, that's weird. But then we just moved on. So there was a couple of examples. Oh, so for example, my sister who lived close by has two boys, and they would often come over and spend the night at my mom's house, and they would like put their bean bag or sleeping bags or whatever in the family room. And this had happened for years, like a decade. And then I was visiting, and this was before the pandemic, and the boys had stayed overnight, and we went out for a little walk in the neighborhood, and we came back into her house that she lived in for 15, 20 years, and the boys' stuff was all over the floor. And she's like, oh, was someone staying here? Or like they've stayed here hundreds, whatever. So it was, and we're like, oh, that's weird, but like stuff like that where it's just like her memory just went blank, but I had no clue. There was more things like that. And I would say for solo aging, the I'm not a doctor, but what they're saying, maybe you know this too, in the dementia world or in the aging world, is the two things that you can possibly do to maybe prevent dementia or any related cognitive decline is number one, socialization, and number two, exercise. So solo aging doesn't mean that you're completely solo all the time, as long as you have an active social environment or habits like going to church, going to the community center, going to the Y, going to coffee. going out with friends. So socialization is key. And my mom was solo during the pandemic, and that definitely accelerated her decline.
Yeah, and also Emily dropped into chat there. My sister is aging solo with her dog. She refuses a diagnosis, but where there's the family is, thinks that there's something there. And I think, Steve, to your point and everybody's point, is to be willing to be vulnerable enough to sort of say that this could happen to me. And if it happens to me, whether it be a neighbor or a friend or an aging life care manager, that you may uh, contract with now and get to know that you have uh, you have some people that can advocate for you. Okay, so
Yes.
so
Well,
be aware.
someone just said SHIELD. So SHIELD is the acronym for Dr. Tansey out of Boston. So SHIELD is an acronym. So of things what you can do. It's so S is for sleep, H is for handling stress, I is for interacting with others, E is for exercise, L is for learning new things, and D is for diet. So Dr. Tanzi, Dr. Tansey out of Boston. That's a
Uh,
big one for just kind of guidelines
wow.
for,
Dr. Tanzi.
yeah, out of Boston.
Okay.
It's his thing. SHIELD is an acronym. Yeah.
Um, okay, let's see. I've never heard about this,
No,
and
he's a big one. Yeah.
so here, let me pull this up, and I'll share this link with folks. It says, um, Dr.
Yep.
Tanzia's Shield Plan. Okay, this is really cool. Boy, Nicole, I thought we were just going to talk about your book, but you've really dropped like a bunch of great references that me and the audience may or may not know about. So
Well, and I always tell people about Dr. What is it, Bill Thomas, who you've had on. He's amazing
oh
too, right?
yeah, no, he's
Yeah,
another.
no, I mean that. So this is what I did when I was going through this with my mom. I'm like, okay, I hear something and I'm like, okay, I'm going to Google it. I'm going to add it to my book. I'm going to watch this movie. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to talk to professionals in the field. So I'm just bugging people all the time to learn as much as I can.
Yeah, the no, this is great. Okay, so be aware, and actually that really stems into exactly what we're talking about is be aware, is that folks, and nobody on this call is guilty of this. It's the people that are not on this call that are sticking their head in the sand, that it's sort of like their adult child is saying, "Hey mom, what would happen if you had dementia?" "Oh, don't talk about that, honey."
Yeah, yeah,
It's just being willing to be vulnerable, to open to new ideas and approaches and things like that. Be aware. Okay, so the next uh, element we got be aware. It's build a plan of care. So what is that?
well, it's be aware, prepare, and then build a plan of care, but you
Oh,
can do them either way. But on the book, it's okay.
okay. So then be aware, then
Prepare and
prepare,
build a plan.
then build
Yeah,
a
well,
plan.
I mean, I want to go back though to be aware. And the other thing is if you the reason you can use for trying to help people is there's still no cure, there's no known cause, there's the only treatment available is certain drugs that can help slow the progression of Alzheimer's or dementia. So if you're even thinking about it, your best chance of preventing a decline is to get detected early and do some lifestyle changes, but also use some of the pharmaceuticals available that seem to be working. Everyone's different, but the longer you wait, the quicker you fall off the edge, basically. So, everyone's different, and I do maybe have gone over this. Dementia is the overarching term for all cognitive decline. So Alzheimer's, Lewy body, Parkinson's, aphasia, temporal poor dementia, vascular dementia. So you've probably gone over that.
Okay. No, these are great things to be thrown out there. Now, Margie
Prepare.
asks, my mom is 96 and struggling daily with depression and anxiety. How do we know she is in the right place and on the right medications?
See a neurologist or sometimes a pharmacologist or a psychologist. Like, my mom ended up we went to the ER, they admitted her, but I had to convince them that's a long story. And then she kind of had a psychotic break in a psych ward, and then they discharged her to memory care. But in the psych ward, because she had depression for decades and she was taking Zoloft and stuff, but she got the meds, like whatever they did there, the meds have been made a tremendous difference in
And and Margie, Sam Simon, who wrote the play Dementia Man and has early Alzheimer's, he has been on our discussion, and a couple of things that I'll share that he shared that might be helpful in your situation. The number one, his doctor diagnosed him with depression, and medicated him for depression, when it was really dementia that he was challenged with. And it took a while to get that cocktail right, as Nicole had said. The other thing that when he wrote his play Dementia Man, he said, I should have written, we thought about naming it In Just 6 Months, because it takes 6 months to get the neurologist appointment. It took 6 months to get the results. And then if you don't like the results, it takes 6 months for another second opinion. But he and others have said that it's very frustrating, but not every neurologist out there knows how to do a proper diagnosis. Margie, if you're in the DC metro market, I can definitely give you a couple of places you might call to make sure that you're on track with the right diagnosis. But for all of us, is like, this is one of those things where it's not a bad idea to get a second opinion and talk to more folks. Would you agree, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to navigate the system. And but the other thing that they say is the people closest to you are the ones that are going to start to notice that your behavior is different for you. So like my mom was always difficult, so the difficult wasn't, but some people like completely switch personalities, but it's the family members and the coworkers and the church members that kind of like I did. I'm like, well, that was weird. That's you're kind of and they but people are reluctant to listen to that sometimes, but that's where the signs show up first. And then some people are like, I got to get a diagnosis, I got to get a diagnosis. Well, yes, you can get a diagnosis and it may help and it may not. It all just depends. Where we had to get the diagnosis, we had to get the letters from the doctors to invoke the terms of the trust. I mean, it just depends on what you're trying to do and where you're going.
Okay. Now, and Margie's from Boston, and I see Betsy has a nice some words of wisdom there for Margie. But I want to address, we're going to get back to prepare, but all this stuff intertwines. But Maria says, what about the cost? Were there any economical resources? And Nicole, as you were telling your story, you're flying cross country. Mom is in a memory care community. Now she's in another memory care community. This is, this starts adding up financially.
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, we were fortunate that so COVID killed us in one respect and gave us a bonus in the other. So mom was by herself in COVID, declined significantly because of being solo. I invited her to be in our bubble. She refused, whatever. So then, but she was running out of money fast. Like, she was in this beautiful house in California, in LA. And so finally, when we got all the pieces together and we're able to actually sell her house, we sold it for 4 times what she bought it for. And that's what's paying for her very expensive memory care. So she's in
Okay.
the top of the line memory care. And because we sold her house.
But yeah, you're just lucky there. And I know, I mean, it's heartbreaking, folks, because I hear the stories pretty much on a weekly basis of somebody not having the wealth and or a home that they can sell. And how can we do this? And oftentimes in those situations, it's a combination of adult daycare. Hey, mom, you can't afford memory care. We're going to take care of you here. You have to come into our bubble whether you like it or not. And that can be very disruptive to a lot of folks.
No, I mean it's hard. And then my dad and stepmom, my dad had some physical issues. My stepmother has aphasia, and so they're living together. And I'm flying out to check on them. So I've got
um,
5 kids, 3 parents, and at one time it was across 6 different states. So I was trying to learn law in each state and the procedures and the will and the trust it's a lot.
Well, I'm glad you wrote a book because it's, if you can save one person from some of the things that you've experienced. Steve asks, give us an idea of what very expensive memory care costs. What is and you haven't named the place, so that's good.
No, $10,000 a month.
10,000 a month.
$10,000 a month.
Okay.
And even though East Coast was more expensive, now that we're in Tucson, we're almost at the same fee because she requires a little bit more of her ADLs, her assist or activities of daily living. So she was 2 years in memory care on the East Coast for 10,000 a month, and now she's here and she needs a little bit more care, and it's basically 10,000 a month. It's a
Now,
lot.
again, we'll get back to prepare and build a plan of care, but you're bringing up these topics that are so relevant to people that I know that people are listening. Any like words of wisdom when it came to getting mom into a memory care community? And I'm using these words because, hey, folks, when most of us are going to like most of the time we all want a choice. We all want to be involved in choosing the place that we live. But when we have dementia, we're more dependent on the people around us. So when we use phrases like "I placed my mom here," yeah, I mean, but if mom has dementia, you sort of did, but we want mom to have as much choice as possible. But any stories that you could tell us to help us with that?
Well, that was the thing. So my mom had had her mother in I mean they moved her out of her home state to be near them and put her in this place, and it was but that could be in a whole nother story, but anyway, so she was familiar with these environments. Her mother had lived there close to them, and she was she basically was playing us. Like she toured them and said, okay, I'll go, I'll think about it. But then she would change her mind. And then she said she put a deposit down when she actually didn't. So she just kept lying to us and going along, just hoping she could prolong and maybe we'd forget about it, which we would not. And then, yeah, basically the shit hit the fan one night and everything changed. We were in the process. And then there was, again, it's like an event driven. You want to avoid the event driven catastrophe or crisis because then you have to make split second decisions and you don't know what's going on and you don't know who to call and it gets 100 times worse. So luckily we had a planning in place and my aunt and I were working together and we continued to work together and it all worked out. I mean, for us, that was the best thing that could have happened, but it was very scary.
Wow. Okay.
Does that answer the question? But I
I,
mean, but
I,
so, and the other thing is people with dementia, they can hold it together when they want to. It depends on who they are, but because that's when we admitted her to the psych ward, they're like, she's fine. She's perfectly fine. What's your, and so luckily we had the letters from the neurologist and the doctor and the lawyer saying she is not fine. So, but they believed her. They didn't believe us.
yep. Okay. All right. So be aware. Number two, prepare. Give us some thoughts on prepare.
Yeah, so prepare is know where the wills and the trusts are, if those are done, get them done if they're not done. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will, and you don't necessarily have to get, it's better if you have a real lawyer, a real CPA, whatever, get those documents done. And also find out if there's a geriatric care manager, a certified senior advisor, or a friend who's a nurse or somebody at your church that kind of just knows this space, knows this drill. Watch Steve's webinars, watch all of them because I mean, you have to just have at least a couple phone numbers ready to go. I turned to my friend who ran a senior living community. She was the sales director there. I called her immediately. I said, this space is new to me. What do I do? Who do I call? And I started learning the acronyms, learning the professionals, learning the people, and figuring it all out because you're gonna get the call. I'm like, you're gonna get the call that there's a fall, a stroke, somebody's missing, a car accident. You're gonna get the call. You're gonna get the call.
Okay, great. Okay. And then our final point, and this is the way the book is organized. It's be aware, prepare, and then build a plan of care. And so tell us, what do we need to know about building a plan of care?
Yes. Find your people. So my Aunt Nancy, like I would have died without my Aunt Nancy. So she's a nurse of 60 years and she's my mom's older sister and we work together. So you have to have someone that you can count on, that you can work with, that you can be with. somebody, a neighbor, a church member, a colleague. Like there's so, I mean, I said, every one of my peers is going through this right now. So I didn't have to, I could throw a rock and hit 8 people that are going through this. So don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. I'm a people person. So I have no qualms about asking anyone or everyone on the street corner, like, what do I do? Who do I ask? Who do I call? So you have to find it, because 30% of caregivers die before the person they're caring for because they're so exhausted and they neglect their own care. So my aunt and I worked together. And then I brought in my husband, who's a CPA, to help with the finances. I brought in a friend who's a financial planner. I brought in the elder law attorney. I mean, and yes, these are professionals, they're expensive. So I put together a team of people that I was, in my family circle that I knew something about this, and paid the elder law attorney, found him through a list I got from the hospital. So I basically just started calling, started asking, started doing my own research on the side. But you've gotta build a plan of a core group of people, care partners, to get you through this, because it's too much for one person. It's too much.
Yeah, and what I call it building our personal village is that, and we've got to do it in advance. And it's but I agree. It's one of these things is that, like, your story is repeated over and over again, because basically everything that you're talking about with your mom, like, the interesting thing is the first point, be aware. She was actually aware of this because she had it in her own family. But
Well, I would say it's not hereditary though. Everybody goes right that it's like there's 1% of all the population in the entire world that it's a hereditary disease. The rest of it is lifestyle. Yeah. So okay. Yeah.
well, no, but what I'm
Oh,
saying is, like,
she knew. Yeah.
what I found is the best caregivers, the most prepared caregivers and planners are
Okay.
people that went through this themselves. So,
Mhm.
like,
Yes.
your 5 kids should not necessarily have to worry and scramble like you and your mom, in theory, okay? In theory, because you've gone through this. Now it may be one of these things where it's like, listen, I had somebody doing it for mom, you're going to do it for me, and but I found that many planners are the people that have experienced this firsthand, and is sort of like, okay, I'm not gonna repeat that. And so it's kind of interesting that your mom had a family member who was in a community, the whole 9 yards. And it's sort of like, but that's sort of the "it's not me" syndrome,
Oh yeah, for sure.
that's other people. That's not me.
Right.
Can't touch me,
Right. Well, she even said, she's like, it would have been so much easier if I would have gotten cancer. And I'm like, no, like you don't get to, and cancer used to be the C word that
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
talked about, but now it's the D word. It's dementia. And I
Hmm.
have a friend who's same age as my mom, and I was telling her about the book, and she goes, well, you can't put dementia in the title. I'm like, yes, I can. And that's exactly why I am, because
Now,
people
out of
need.
curiosity, do you have any insight on why your friend said something like that? Not
Well,
putting.
because she's in the zone. She's in her 70s, and it's the fear factor. Like again,
Okay.
nobody wants to talk about it. Don't talk about it and it won't affect you.
Yeah, no, no. Okay, I got it. Yeah, like the C word. Yeah, we wouldn't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
say cancer. Yeah, so but this, no, the more that what I found is the more that we talk about this, and it's ironic that, I mean, people don't want to talk about death either. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
but the thing there is we're all gonna die. Like, we've all should be talking about death. Um, some of us may not have dementia, and but you still got to talk about it, or talk about healthcare issues in
Well,
general.
dementia is not I'm dementia champion trained through Dementia Friends, but dementia is not a normal part of aging. But once you hit your 80s, 1 in 3 people has dementia, and 1 in 3 people is caring for someone with dementia. So, and everyone's living longer because they don't do open heart surgery anymore. They put in a stent, a pacemaker. You're in and out in 20 minutes. You replace a hip, and you're out that day. So the body, they can repair everything in the body really easily, but so now everybody's living longer, and then the mind is going. And sometimes anesthesia can cause many strokes and cause dementia. And I mean, I'm not a doctor, but yeah.
Okay. a couple of more
Oh, yes, I'm
resources.
part of Alt Authors. Yes, Alt Authors is a great Alt Authors is all these people have written a book about Alzheimer's, and so I'm in, and they're gonna feature me like I think in April or something. So I'm in Alt Authors. Thank you. That's another great resource.
Okay, but you dropped again another resource is you said your dementia friends
Champion train. I'm a champion.
So tell us a little bit about this organization.
So I think Dementia Friends actually started in the UK, and then now there's chapters in the US. And I found out about it through one of my friend in Indiana. She's been a dementia champion for I think like a decade. And then there's the area agency on aging all over the country. So in Arizona here, it's PIMA Council on Aging, and I got connected with them, and then they offered the dementia training, and they offer memory cafes and all kinds of resources. So area agencies on aging it's a government program that's everywhere, but it varies depending on just your area and how the programs run. They aren't all like equal. So yeah, so there's also
Um,
authors is a great one. Yeah, so anyway.
so this is
Yep.
a resource where other where
It's
they
just all authors. It's all books about Alzheimer's and dementia, but it's written like if you want one that's written about my sister has it or my brother has it or my uncle or my dad or mother, it's got like all kinds of perspectives and
okay.
all kind. I read the one, well, so I was really mad at my sister. So I think what's it called? It was something, there was a book about sisters that somebody on an alt author wrote. So I got that one. So yeah, I've read quite a few of them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and fiction, caregiver blog. This is cool.
Yeah.
I really glad that let's see who shared that. It looks like it was Christine. Thank you, Christine, for sharing that resource. Okay, let's see. Uh there was something here. Yeah, okay. Um Oh man, I love what I'm reading in chat. Everybody's sharing some great resources. Um, Deborah's, this is an interesting comment. My 15-year-old died from dementia, and it was shown high levels of lead due to lead paint he was using. Huh.
Wow.
Okay. I've
Sorry.
never.
That's oof.
Okay. And Sarah says, I think my mom worries that a dementia diagnosis will somehow may invalidate all the work and accomplishment she's experienced in her life. And like Sarah, that I feel is probably a real natural feeling. I mean, and again, going back to Sam Simon, who is an accomplished attorney for Ralph Nader, and as he started, his mind was his tool, and so it just sort of talking to people and getting support and telling our loved ones how much we love them is really key.
Well, I
Um,
say live your legacy. Just live your legacy now. And well, that's the funny thing. You talked about my mom and my grandma, because I said to my mom one time, I said, well, you put grandma in there. Why can't you go? She's like, well, I was somebody or I am somebody. And I'm like, so it's just like, oh. So, but it's up to us to keep her legacy alive. And we, in memory care, we're talking to everybody, we're sharing stories of how she ran a company, and that's her legacy. We're a testament to her legacy.
um, and let's see, you brought up, and I see Emily is also bringing up departments of aging, and I know we have people from all over the country on this discussion today, but I'll reference US Aging, and I'll drop this into the link. This is a great resource to be able to connect with area agencies on aging and department on aging all over the country. And probably one of the best tools is this Eldercare locator, which has an 800 number, and you can do a search online. So if you're in Des Moines and you're looking for some of the resources that Nicole is talking about today, an that the elder care locator and US Aging can be a great resource. So I'll drop that in. And okay, the okay. Oh, I sent my mom a journal. Vita says I sent my mom a journal to capture the life. I asked her to continue her legacy. There's so many creative ways out there. We did a thing called Storyworth with my dad, and
Oh,
we actually did it with all of the loved one, all of the elders in our family. We bought them this Storyworth, and what it does
fun.
every week, it asks them a question and they respond, and it puts together this wonderful book at the end of the year. And I learned things about my dad that I didn't know. Now, preferences are very important here. Is that if somebody is not drawn to the written word, they're not going to do Storyworth, you know. And what I was saying to my mom is, why don't me and my brother interview her on Zoom each month, and we'll ask the questions, and then we can turn that into a transcript and get her the book, you know.
Fun.
But it's just getting really getting
Creative.
creative is key.
Yeah, no, I talked to my dad. I mean, my dad had a scare. He had he hurt his shoulder and had shoulder surgery. And when he came out of it, I thought he'd aged 10 years and I freaked out. So I talked to him every 2 to 3 days. And he's super funny. So it's, it's easy to talk to him. So I definitely talk to my dad all the time now. And I find out things now that I never knew about him.
Suma says, have you heard about acupuncture as an option to help with dementia?
I mean, anything to me, like anything that's not like massive surgery or mega drugs, like try it. Like who cares? My mom, we do baby therapy. So she loves babies. So we go to the park or we go to story time. We've always loved babies. So we went to one story time at the library and then there was like a break. So then we went into the kids section and then we went to the same story time again. We were there for like 3 hours and she just loved it. So you just have to
Wow.
find out what they love. She
You
doesn't like
know,
not dolls or dogs or anything, but real like, and I
the
show her
scene,
baby
yeah,
videos and
seeing babies and man, like think about that. I love that idea, and it never dawned on me. I mean, like that an outsider, somebody who's not a parent or a grandparent, might enjoy and just find, peace in sitting in a playground and observing.
we did
Or
that all the time. We did that all the time. Where she was in Maryland, there was a Whole Foods with a playground, there was a library. We just go into Target. She would like stock the little, we call it baby stocking. We're baby stocking. And then also Music Together, which is a global music program for little
yeah,
kids. They have a program called Generations where they'll hold the toddler music program in a senior living facility so that they can interact with all the seniors and the seniors can just watch them go crazy. So it's Music Together is based in Princeton, but so I just sent that link to the activities director at our new memory care, and she's looking into it.
oh man. Yeah, I'm familiar with Music Together, and the uh I'll drop this in and see if we can't
It's
find
called
the
Generations. I think it's like their program for it, but if you type in Generations Music Together or something, but anyway,
okay, all right. Well, we'll look into that. Yeah, okay. Okay. And let's see. Gene says, Steve, you need to become a dementia friend.
oh, Jean is a circle leader and a dementia friend.
Oh
Jean is a
wow.
nurse and a hi, Jean.
Um,
She's
the goal
amazing.
the goal of being a dementia friend is find what books are left on their bookshelf so that you connect in person. Nicole's story and what she does is exactly what a dementia friend does. Find ways to bring a person. Yeah. So
And
you
Jean
know
is
what?
part of Daughterhood too. So Jean is another amazing Daughterhood resource. Go, Jean.
That's cool. I no, last week we had a great presentation on a program that is academically backed on improving, brain games. Okay. And when our guest was sort of like, when somebody asked how much does it cost, like $100, I was like, well, shoot, I should do this. Like, it'll make me more authentic, but it's going to help me too. And this kind of goes back to Suma's question about acupuncture. Is that and it's what my guest last week, Dr. Clark said too, is that okay, a certain game might not be proven academically to um build cognitive reserves, but if it's not hurting you and you find joy in it,
Yeah.
it's better than just sitting in front of the TV,
Do Wordle. Do Wordle.
yeah, Wordle, yeah.
Wordle and connection
Well, what was
every day.
interesting, what was interesting in that discussion when we were talking about the games, the games that actually work, that are proven to work, are strategy games. So the funny thing is, they are some of these role-playing games that like our kids are playing. But that's the main thing is that something that has a strategy involved in it will enhance
Like
your.
Fortnite. Fortnite.
Yeah, no, it was like that.
Well, yeah, well, my kids are going to be fine then because they're Fortnite
Yeah,
freaks. So
yeah. And Margie says my mom loves Scrabble. Okay.
we played
Um,
Scrabble with my mom too. It was fun. I mean, we had to help her, but that was one thing
yeah,
we did together.
but like a game like that it's building social bonding and connectedness, which we know are healthy, and social isolation is unhealthy. So there's a win-win there. Well, I'm looking at the clock. We burned through an hour. This is amazing. Nicole, I'm so proud of you for writing the book. I love how transparent you are. And Deb, I totally agree. What I like best about this discussion, I kind of thought, none of these are ever the way that I think they're going to be. I was like, oh, we'll go through the book with Nicole. But Nicole, what I like about what you did, number one, transparent about your own situation. Number two, you referred to so many great resources, from daughterhood to elder law attorneys to aging life care, and just the cost of assisted living and moving your mom all over the place is just really great. Vita says, can you give suggestions on the strategy games? Vita, what I'm going to do, which will be better than that, is I'm going to put into chat, which is recorded, and this will all be online later this afternoon. But the discussion that I had with Dr. Ellen Clark, because I want you and everyone to listen to what she was saying about the games, and then you might have a better handle on that. And so I dropped that into chat there. And then Steve asks, Steve, can you remind us about your solo aging groups? Yes. I'll put together another roundtable on solo aging next month. I'm gonna try to do that monthly because it is such an important topic. And what I also love about the solo aging roundtable discussion is that we get in there, you got like 80 to 100 people. Every single person is sort of like, I'm a solo ager. I feel, some level of loneliness, isolation, or helplessness. But we're in this big group of 100 people. We're together feeling isolated, and that's what I like about it. It's a shot in the arm for all of us. Okay. Oh, Kelly Lambert brings up BCAT. Are you familiar with BCAT?
No.
Okay, so I forgot the acronym, what it stands for, but it is an amazing program, and I'm dropping this in to chat. Dr. Mansbach is the founder of this. It's again another academically proven program, and so check that out. And we've had many discussions with Dr. Mansbach. He's amazing. Also, if you're in the Mid-Atlantic, he has a center. So he has a location where you can get diagnosis and you can get coaching on, brain health and things like that too. So check out BCAT, folks.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm fine to do. I'm having a booth at the Tucson Festival of Books, March 9th and 10th. or 8th and 9th, whatever. Anyway, it's 9th and 10th, I think, but it's a huge book festival at the University of Arizona campus every year. I mean, and I'm happy to Zoom on women's clubs, books clubs,
Oh,
church clubs,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, folks, if you're a part of an organization, as you can see, Nicole's a great speaker to have. And the other question, Nicole, like outside of the book and being involved with daughterhood, do you do like one-on-one consulting with folks or anything
Well,
like
so
that?
that's my like grand goal. Like, so we moved cross country, kids in
Okay.
college, moving mom, everything like that. So my goal is to write the book, do speaking gigs, and offer consulting eventually. Like I'm an expert through experience. That's what I say. I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, a financial planner, or a social worker. I'm a daughter and I'm a caregiver, and I like to talk. So,
I love it. Okay.
so
Is it okay if I put your email on the
sure.
recording link?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So I
Okay.
mean, yeah, awesome.
Excellent. Okay. All right, folks. Well, another great day. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And we will see you at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.